What is up, everybody? My name is Chris. I am your host with the most, and alongside me is...
And I'm Brianna. Hey, guys. What's up? How's it going?
How you?
How you?
How you?
How you doing? Good. Everything's good. We are getting closer and closer to Halloween time.
It is a time. It is a season.
So, yeah, we are kicking off our Halloween extravaganzas. Opening night, Halloween Haunt. Hope to see y'all there.
Yeah, if you're not a creep and you're not going to kill us, please show up to Halloween Haunt. If you are, then don't show up. That'll just cause chaos and havoc. You have a little bit of a sultry voice on accident.
What do you mean?
You have like a sex operator voice
on
accident.
I always sounded like this.
I mean, that's kind of your phone voice a little bit, but like,
better than my voice a couple days ago.
Yeah. It's like, it's got this weird balance because you got a little sick. Supposedly not COVID according to a rapid test, but who knows? Who fucking knows at this time?
Right. Over the weekend, it's probably because I was helping out at our daughter's school. It was picture day, and they were short on staff, so they had asked me to come and help. And so I'm sitting there literally styling every kid's hair and helping them with the flyaways. And you know, I'm a hairstylist, so
the flyaways.
You never heard of that before?
No, I've never heard of a flyaway.
Okay, so like
I've heard of a fly.
Everybody's gonna have a lesson. Flyaways are like if you part your hair down the middle and then you get these like little short pieces that like stick up. I would just come in with my pomade and just slightly brush them down a little bit and kind of use my fingers as like combs. Just
a little bit of a helmet job.
Yeah, I would help the boys out if they, you know, wild little boys are. So I would just help smooth out their hair a little bit so it looked more polished for the pictures. You know, I'm sure their moms will thank me later.
They will. They will appreciate you.
So, but yeah, there was kids. I mean, I wore a mask, but kids were. It wasn't.
Schools have always been a petri dish.
They were coughing and sneezing and you know all the things. So, and then you know if they were contaminated anyway, touching their hair, I'm touching their hair. I really was so busy, I didn't really have time to sanitize as much as I would have liked my hands. So Saturday night my voice started cracking, and by Sunday my voice was almost completely gone. I kind of had to whisper, and but that was what was weird. I didn't like have fevers or chills or body aches, and I've never like lost my voice before. So that was like really interesting. And
yeah,
then
you sounded like a teenage boy going through puberty.
Yeah, I did. And so, yes, and then I had like a little random cough here and there. But, so yeah, it's been really strange.
It is bizarre. It is a bizarre. Before we get into, because we have our headlines, but this is our first like heavily focused topic episode in a long time. We've done a lot of...
and for me, it was on accident. I found, you know, and initially like our... one of our next episodes will be vampires. Spoiler alert.
Generally speaking, vampires.
Right. Yeah. Just, you know, when I was like really, I like to, when I'm looking up any type of story, I like to really dive into origin stories and really see like the roots of where the story came from and the beliefs of, you know, all the different people of the world, you know, thousands of years ago. And so in the process of doing that, I don't even know how I stumbled upon this amazing story in Barcelona. So yeah, for me, like I'm really excited to share that tonight.
You dropped Barcelona. So let's get into it. We are going to be talking about this tonight. We're going to be talking about the living vampires of the past. Though, you know, vampires are notorious for being there. You know, there's a few myths with them being the living amongst the living, but a lot of times they show up as the undead. But we're going to be talking about the living vampires, maybe the closest thing we have to real vampires that are floating out there. Yeah. And you mentioned Barcelona. So where did you what tale from Barcelona did you come across?
So apparently this is like a really common story. Like nowadays it's like basically like how we talk about the boogeyman being under your bed type of thing. So in Barcelona, they talk about the vampire of Barcelona, and the vampire that they're referring to, her name is Enriqueta Marti Ripoles. And I probably butchered that name, even though I found me from Barcelona.
Any pronunciation. It might
I
be
do not speak Spanish. I am full
Ripoles,
American, and I definitely wasn't raised on my
we
Spanish
apologize,
side.
but hopefully you get the gist. But
Yeah.
Enriqueta,
But
go ahead.
yeah, so we'll just refer to her first name, Enriqueta. And so fascinating. I mean, as a serial killer, she was a true born entrepreneur. So she
Bit of business out of it.
yeah. But yeah, so like the folklore and then like the little stories, they would, it was like, oh, eat all your vegetables, or Enriqueta's will come and get you, the vampire, she'll sneak into your bed and steal you. And so the origin of that, like, why would they talk about this quote unquote vampire woman? The origin of that, let's get right into it. Let's see. So they call it the Black Legend of Enriqueta. And so she was known to be a child serial killer, kidnapper, prostitute, and basically like a pimp of children.
Yeah,
So-
and just before we get any further, she was a serial killer of children, not like a child who was a serial killer. Just for clarity.
Oh yes, yeah. She I mean, who knows like what else she was capable of, but this is what she's well known for. And a lot of this stuff, like there's people that don't believe it. They think it's just all, myths and legends and things that people have made up over the years. But I mean, there are definitely like documents that do, prove that otherwise. Well, basically, like, and let me see our years here. She was born in 1868 and died in 1913. And at the
Spoiler alert.
What?
Sorry. The fact that she died. It was just, I'm sorry. I can't help myself.
And so she had opened a brothel that attracted like mostly like affluent people with money, people that had like a status.
And she started out as a prostitute, right, before she was a madam.
That's what I had read.
Yeah. So
Also.
she worked her way up. Like she
Yeah.
wasn't like she didn't come in all bougie, not knowing the business. She knew what the nitty gritty was.
I think just from doing a little research, what put her in that next bracket, there was a lot of customers coming in with unusual desires, which were for children and that kind of weird fetishes. So what she would do for these special customers, by day, she would dress up as like a homeless lady and she would wander the streets of Rappel. So, in Barcelona, in this certain area, it's still known to be a little sketchy, but in this time, that she would roam when she was, pretending to be a homeless lady, it was kind of known as almost like the red light district.
It was like the slums, right? Isn't that where she kind of made
and it was
her
like,
trade?
yeah, it was like very much like, I think how you would envision it back then would be like Amsterdam, like
a little bit. It was like, it was free spirited and it was dangerous, too.
Right.
And it was like low income, very, very low.
Right. So she would wander around the streets like a homeless woman, and she would attract children, and she would make sure that they were alone, maybe walking home from school. Who knows where the kids may be going to the store for their sick parents or whatever. And she would draw them in by saying, "Would you like some candy?" And hold their hands, and the kids would follow her and further and further take these children away. And unfortunately, they would never go back home.
That's like fucked up. That's like that's like a almost modern day, because this is old timey, right? This happened in the late 19th century, early 20th century. But it's like this is like a grim fairy tale kind of shit, like Hansel and Gretel kind of bullshit. Like because the wicked fucking madam is gonna lead you into death as a child.
And how she would dress as like a a homeless person.
Yeah,
and then
wicked.
trick these kids,
It's like cartoon wicked.
into going with her. So her the interesting thing with her too. So she would take these children, and she had apartments all over town, and so it was said that she would use certain apartments for her like witchcraft, and she would make out of the children's blood, she would make the fountain of youth, if you will. She said that she could cure tuberculosis, and all of this high society that she would kind of smooch and hang out with, she would sell them this crap, So
crap is the key word. It's like the most fucking rich
Snake
douchebaggy
oil.
like snake oil ever.
Yeah.
Like just to say that these crushed up bones and blood of children are going to cure you from tuberculosis is such an old timey and fucked up thing. Like it was.
Well, she was a good manipulator. I mean, look at
Yeah, you think?
she dressed like a homeless lady. She drew the kids in. She's drawing in, all of her clientele. So like she knew what she was doing. So
I can't even imagine. This just goes to the timelessness of the kind of uber fucked up perverted shit that rich people can get away with. Like I think we even talked about Epstein.
for sure, like that was another thing when I
fucked.
was reading this. It's like, hey, yeah, she was fucked up for doing all that stuff, but where did all of the high society rich people that were probably really pristine, where most people looked up to these people, like
They coasted.
nobody threw them
Yeah,
out
yeah,
under
they're-
the bus. No one, they were nowhere to be found at that point. So interesting enough, like in this, like this will kind of narrow down like her story, but it's like a story within what she did. I wanted to give you a premise of who this woman was, what she did. So she had her apartment over here where she's making her elixirs, right, of the blood. She had an apartment over here where she would use
Elixirs of the Blood. That's
she
my
would
favorite
use-
metal band.
she would use some children as like servants to her, and as soon as like they would come in, as soon as she would kidnap them, she would chop their hair off, say, "You don't have parents anymore, and you belong to me," and they had to obey by her rules. Well, there was this one little girl that had gone missing. This is like the true story. This one girl had gone missing, and her parents had put all over town like pictures of this girl, like everywhere. So, if you're in that area constantly, you're seeing a little girl, the face is going to kind of be on your mind. So the kids were not allowed to go near the window. Well, one day, this particular little girl went by the window, and the neighbor across the way had saw into the lady's apartment and saw the little girl, and she said that she looked like excuse me, she looked unkept and like healthy, like malnourished. So they sent the police over there, and long behold, that's how she was caught, after getting away with this for like 20 years. I like that. To me, that was like the most happy fairy tale ending, just knowing that, oh my God, this little girl like was reunited with her family and everything like that, but like just that lady being in the right place at the right time, looking into this lady's window and catching a glimpse of this poor child and rescuing her and another child's life that was also there. So that's the legend. Like I said, some people say it's true, some people say it's not. People say it's more dramatized of what it is.
It probably is a little bit, but and officially the only thing that she was really ever confirmed doing was the kidnapping of that one kid, which is bad enough, obviously. But that was,
They said that she didn't kill, but supposedly in this particular story with this little girl, in another room there were dead bodies and a lot of hair. She saved hair. She did stuff with hair.
she did a lot of, so she was like the ultimate like comic book witch doctor. Like she had like bones and hair and blood and all that fucked up shit. Like, and I did see, like, because I did a little bit digging into this after you mentioned it, because it piqued my curiosity, and I did see that there's a conspiracy theory that Because so the story is she went to jail and she didn't end up getting convicted because she died before she had a chance to be prosecuted. But one of the conspiracy theories is actually like the kind of vanilla milquetoast theory is that she died of cancer. But one of the conspiracy theories is that she was killed. Someone hired someone else to sneak into her jail and kill her.
That's what I heard.
One of these wealthy people who had these skeletons in their closet, probably maybe literally skeletons in their closet. But yeah, that's nuts, and it's. I
would if I was in prison with her and I heard about what she did to children, I'd be beating her ass and
I mean,
I heard she was beat to death by other inmates.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like there's some I heard somewhere that there's like marks of it being a little bit of a like she was prosecuted partially because of sexism and stuff like that. But if she was holding at least one kid, there's probably other cases of her holding other kids. So, I mean, I'm not going to be too light on a fucking child kidnapper. Like, especially if she's borrowing them out to brothels, like that is royally fucked. That's royally fucked. And it's just, there's so much like us starting to look at vampirism and stuff like that. There's so much obsession back in the day because they didn't know any fucking better, probably with blood. Like, they're like, if you like, they thought like, oh, if you drank blood, young blood, you would,
it's something with you have to get it has to be a child, so it has to be pure blood, and
it was just a healthy blood.
Child,
that's all they thought. It was purity thing.
But you have to almost get the child in a scared state, and then that's when the blood's supposed to be like the best.
For them,
it's fucking weird.
For them, it was very much about like it was a purity thing. Like if you. And it goes back to like bloodletting. Like bloodletting happened. You know what bloodletting is, right? Mm-hmm. Bloodletting happened. It's for most people, I'm sure if they're fans of the podcast, they know what it is. But it's when literally you would get your blood drained as like a medical procedure to cure you of whatever ailments you had.
You know, people do that today.
I mean, I'm sure it happens.
They call it blood dumping now. So basically, like, if you go to the doctor and you do like a little bit of blood testing and they're like, you have way too much iron in your blood. The doctor won't ever say do blood dumping, but there's like homeopathic doctors do it. I have some clients that do it. And, and they say after they do it, they feel so much better because it's like it's like the cleansing of the old blood to the new blood.
There are some use cases where bloodletting is still used in medical practice, but back in the day, bloodletting was like, that was like one of their only solutions. Like, oh, you got this, bloodletting. Mm-hmm. Oh, you got a cold, bloodletting. Mm-hmm. Oh, you have cancer, bloodletting. Like, it was just the answer to everything because they didn't know any fucking better. They're just like, we're just going to do this.
Right.
And it was still practiced like in a big bad way until like, I think the early 20th fucking century.
I had also heard that like people just would have blood. They would have like a cup of blood. Like on their, like it was like the necessity.
Their V8.
It was literally V8? Just like on their like kitchen table. They would have like some blood in case whatever. So like the like to this day, people still, you know, I know you're like, oh God, here she goes with their conspiracy theories, but there are people who think that that blood from children is the fountain of youth.
No.
When you even think about
it's a messenger system for the nervous, like it's just the transportation
heard of, like,
system.
The
it's
serums that they sell with like stem cells and all that stuff.
No, I haven't heard of those.
Are you serious?
No, I haven't heard.
Oh yeah, like especially like if you're very wealthy, you can buy.
Oh, there's
the
all
good
kinds
one.
of stems.
But,
I think athletes use
like,
that, especially too, and like
legit. Like my Botox girl, like she sells some stem cell treatments for your skin.
I know that.
And I was so mortified when I read like that, and I'm glad that it was like a disclaimer, but the disclaimer was like,
don't do this.
This doesn't have, basically like letting you know it's okay. This isn't from a baby's fetus. And I was just like, what are people, but that makes me think, what are people putting like on their skin?
You know, that makes me think, it makes me think definitely from a baby fetus. Like if someone like is like, if someone walks into a room and says, I'm not a murderer, you're going to be the first suspect for murder.
Well, what freaks me out about that is that like people, like getting aborted, like that are aborting their children, they're going through their traumatic stuff that, and they're like kind of, they leave and they're like out of sight, out of mind. What the fuck is that nurse or whoever the fuck's doing that? What are they doing with that fetus? Are they selling it?
Let's look into it. No, I think
it's just... Are they put it on the black market? Well, how are people getting these human fetuses to make stem cells to sell to people and
lab babies, baby?
And it's funny because freaking Enriqueta like got in trouble for it. I mean, obviously other stuff too, but here we are like selling it like it's fucking nothing.
Well, I mean, she was also of poverty and a woman, so that didn't help her out in her case. Yeah, it's crazy. It's insane that like.
Girl seemed like she was definitely like she was stacking it. Like if she had all those apartments back in the day, and think about she's got her brothel gig. Wasn't she selling like all that like witch doctor stuff at the opera house? Like people would go in to see like. I don't know. I'm gonna say Les Miserables, even though I don't think that was at the time. But let's just say Les Miserables because I'm not fucking cultured. But they were going in to see the opera. Let's say a Mozart opera, and then on their way out, they'd get some children's blood as like or did they get that during intermission? Chummy. I mean, because a lot of those people came to the brothel, so the
noble pervs.
So she got to like get in with the crowd. So I honestly think she was doing very well for herself.
Oh, I'm sure she was doing. I'm sure she was
insane.
doing. Okay, and you know who else was doing well for herself until she got in hot-blooded trouble because she was a naughty girl? Was Elizabeth Bathory, the most infamous? I got into the whole of Elizabeth Bathory, who again kind of. Yeah, I'm sure most people know vaguely of her.
Have we done a podcast on her before?
No, we haven't.
I think vaguely.
I think she's been mentioned because she's cited as like the origins of a lot of vampire myths and stuff like that, like modern day literature vampire myths. Because she's
so the myth that I want to look up right now, if you didn't find out about her already, which I think would be like a good segue into her story, is that she was supposedly the cousin or distant relative to Dracula.
Well, she was in the lineage. I don't know if how direct she was with. She was, and the thing is, too, all these fucking noble people of Europe were all fucking inbred. She was actually a child of incest. She was the daughter of first cousins, which was not that weird for the time. It was kind of you kept it in house to keep the bloodlines pure. But the fact of the matter is, by trying to keep it fucking pure, you messed it all up because all those noble kids, all those nobility kids had fucked up problems. And Elizabeth Bathory was not excluded from this because she supposedly had epilepsy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And for her first taste of blood, I'm not sure if you knew this, but I don't know if you know that as part of, again, we would get back to this dumb shit about the obsession with blood and as a purifier. As a child, they would take healthy kids' blood and I believe parts of their skull, mash it up,
oh my God,
and put it on Elizabeth's lips as a supposed cure. They thought it would be a cure for Elizabeth.
Sounds like she was just trying to make some homemade lipstick.
Maybe. Well, this is what her parents did. So she got a real taste of blood very early on.
Wow.
But her parents didn't actually get to feed her blood on her lips that frequently because both of them died when she was 10. Wow. So Elizabeth Bathory was orphaned when she was 10 years old. And she was also actually, by the way, engaged when she was 10 years old.
Oh my God.
Well, it was chosen when she was 2. They chose a suitor for her who I believe was, I think he was like 15 or something when she was 10. But they chose a suitor for her. She was officially engaged at 10 years old, married at 15. And as part of the suitor, and we're talking about, by the way, I don't mean to backtrack too much, but we're talking about Countess Elizabeth Bathory. So she was not a queen, but she was definitely high nobility. She would actually her family was the richest, one of the richest in Europe, and they actually floated. This has like this whole thing has like Hillbilly and Game of Thrones vibes because the Hungary,
I'm obsessed.
the Hungary
love that so
government at the time the Kingdom of Hungary actually owed the Bathory's money, not the reverse. So like they were like the fucking Lannisters. That like that's how rich Elizabeth Bathory and she actually married Francis. We're gonna butcher all these names.
This was the love of her life, right?
She absolutely loved him. There's the fucked up reasons why, because she married him and he was kind of, it was like, let's throw out a name, Kim and Kanye. Like they were like uber, like they were both nobles. They were both incredibly famous for their region. They were both incredibly powerful. They married. So they were a power couple through and fucking through.
And she was mesmerized by him. When I had read this story years and years ago, and it was very intriguing to me. Obviously, like the link that they said that she was possibly related to Dracula, which I thought was like kind of insane.
They're all related.
But this is probably a myth, but it kind of dramatizes the reason for why later on in her life, why she did what she did. So the story that I heard is that she is sitting at a little water fountain with the love of her life, side by side, and an old decrepit woman walks by, and he's like disgusted and mortified by this woman, and Elizabeth says to him, "Will you still love me someday when I look like that?" And he looked at her and laughed at her, and he was like, absolutely not. And because of her obsession with him and wanting to keep him and always make him in love with her, that's what they say where it all stemmed from. One day she was mad and beat one of her maids and saw the slight bit of blood from her mouth that went on her arm on her hand, and she kind of rubbed it in her skin to kind of make it go away. And she realized when she looked at her pores that her hand looked like fresher. And that's the little, I don't know if like, well, you know, obviously I know you have all, you're like, I got to say stuff.
It up.
But that's the little origin story that I had read, which like really just kind of started making all the pieces come together.
Yeah. So there's a few different, so the whole blood over the hand thing is one of the most popular, like, folklore that's out there, and there's possibility that she saw that and that's what kind of enticed her,
which is true.
I haven't seen that story about
that before.
I haven't seen the story about the husband
saying
that famous fountain scene. But wait, you rub blood on your hand, you're like, looks so fresh, and
like the way that it like goes into your pores, it like,
okay, if I wink 3 times, really, guys, I'm asking for help.
It moisturizes them. But it's so funny that you're not like, I guess because I talked to...
How many was that, 3 times? I don't know. I've been winking.
I talked to all my clients about this stuff.
About
like
blood.
About killing my husband and using his blood.
Cool.
No, like,
it's not good blood.
There's like in the beauty industry, all the females listening to me like that are into this stuff. There's something called the vampire facial.
I know.
I've heard of the vampire facial.
I've heard of the vampire facial.
Okay. Do you know how it works?
You just put blood on your fucking face.
No, they take your blood and they put in this mixer and it shakes it up so it separates like the plasma and then after they like poke little holes, basically like tattooing your face, but without the tattoos, which helps bring the collagen. And then once you have those open wounds, they put that in there, and it's like plumping of your skin. You look like you're glowing. So yeah, people, this is done today. This is done today. So the torture shit that she used to do, like all of the crazy stuff that we're doing today, like I said with the stem cells, it's coming from somewhere. Like this is history.
Yeah, I mean, I think the humans have always had a fascination with blood and the whole idea of nourishment and stuff like that from the blood. I just want to let you know, I don't put it out on Front Street, that if you end up murdering me and using my blood, joke's on you, because if you rub that on your skin, you're going to age 10 years. With my blood, no chance. That shit's so foul that you're going to turn into the wicked witch.
No comment.
So you talked about the origins of Elizabeth's violence, right? She had rage as a child. That is completely documented.
Anger issues.
She had major, but that was like, apparently that was not that out of the ordinary for like nobles to just like lash out at their fucking servants. Just the servants used to get a beating, and it was just like, that's noble for you. It's fucked up. But there's a few possible incidents that triggered.
It's like, how do you bite the hand that feeds you? Literally, these people are cooking your food.
You know why?
They could poison your ass.
Well, they could, but they're replaceable. That's why. You know. And also too, there was like this fucked up thing with servants, like that you felt, especially, I feel like, especially the reason why, even with rumors starting to bubble up with Elizabeth, the reason why a lot of parents gave their daughters as servants, because it was still
money
seen as an honor. Like, oh my God, my daughter's going to work for the countess.
Well,
like,
a lot of poor families were like, we could never give you the life that you could being a servant. So even though you're a servant, you're living in a castle. Yeah. So that, they looked at it as like such a beneficial thing. Little do they know. Little do they know what really goes on. Yeah, it's crazy. So, but some of the theories on where Elizabeth first got the taste for violence and the taste for blood is, in one scenario, there was a story about her just kind of strolling around, and she witnessed a gypsy who was trying to steal children. And at that time, one of the punishments for people, I think especially gypsies, is they would, as part of their death, they would give them essentially a death penalty. But their mode of execution was to be sewn to a horse while alive. Yeah, literally sewn to a horse, which I don't understand the symbolism behind that. I don't know why. What part of the horse are you sewn to, first of all?
Let's look up.
I have so many questions.
I'm guessing the ass. I'm not.
See, some big shit. I've never heard that. That's really fascinating and disturbing.
Yeah. That's one of the. So she witnessed this, and so she's like, "Oh my God,
this gypsy woman was being sewn to the horse."
This is who I am. It sparked a passion in her for torture and killing.
Like, she liked watching.
She loved it, and that's what there's always a spark for these serial killers that lights it. That's one theory. The other theory is that because she, in between her getting engaged at 10 years old and her marriage at 15, she actually had an affair with a nobleman, but he was like much lesser nobleman. So as far as Francis was concerned, he was scum, right?
Gosh, sounds like Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth also tortured a lot of people, but she doesn't have the same reputation as Countess Elizabeth. But so she had this affair with this guy, and I think apparently she might have even got pregnant. But didn't hold the child.
Escándalo.
But Francis found out, and Francis sent her away, and then hunted down this nobleman. And he castrated the nobleman and fed him to his dogs. And he went back to Francis, or Francis went back to Elizabeth and said, "This is what I did." And Elizabeth got like her rocks off. She's like, basically she was saying, that is the hottest fucking thing I've ever heard of. And so that's what it sparked that flame, was her hearing about the brutality. And how much, like, what he would do to, like, it's almost in a weird way, like, oh, you're so in love with me. Like, that sort of thing. Twisted. And at that point, that sparked it. And then at 15, when she was 15, they were married at that point. And her husband, Francis, started teaching her how to fucking torture. And so he was like, that was the her dog apprentice. Thing. I just remembered that was a big part of it too. She fed a lot of
her victims to her dogs.
Oh, not just dogs.
What kind of fucking dog? Like, what kind of fucking dogs are these?
I think dogs were crazier back then. I mean, they weren't as
More
domesticated. A little more wild. I mean, they were
the fuck?
domesticated, but not.
I'm thinking about like.
You could probably find some real fucking aggressive dogs back then.
I'm just thinking about these kind of dogs.
They're probably like.
Because even like people, or I know I say pit bulls are vicious. I've never been around a pit bull that was harmful. Like, what kind of dogs are these?
Yeah,
Wolves?
I don't know. Well, I think they would. I think they were actually like well-trained hunting dogs. So you could train a dog, but they still had a really vicious streak because they weren't as docile as they are now, I would imagine. But he started teaching her how to torture. He's like, no, this is how you do it. Even at the point where he taught her revival. So when you're torturing someone and they're about to slip out of consciousness, they're about to go fade into the light, he taught her things like putting paper in between the victim's toes and lighting on fire, which sparked them back into consciousness so she can torture some more.
Oh my God. Like,
so he started teaching her how to torture, but she didn't really murder, right? He was vicious, she was vicious, and they found this weird obsession, probably, I'm assuming sort of like Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox, in torturing people because they're torturing us all. But like, just like
I feel like they're like poser. Like
they're torturing us in every way that's annoying, and not scary.
Yeah, like I'm just
they're
like,
not posers. They're real. They're only real people on this planet.
I just don't know
but
if they're really doing.
Yeah, but Elizabeth Bathory was all about torturing poor servants, and she, for the record, she was obsessed with young female, preferably virgin servants, right? She wasn't torturing
but
boys.
I heard that was also the jealousy. Like, it was like, I'm getting old and you have the youth and I'm jealous of you.
Possibly. So one of the theories, always the kind of the literary theory is always like the ever essence, like the wanting to be constantly youthful and being jealous of young females. That is an aspect that is floated out there all the time. One of the other theories is that she
really quick. Did he cheat on her?
There's no record of it. There's no, but I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised.
He was
his
a nobleman.
Like,
yeah. So, and there's also, let's get into this further because she was torturing people and all that good stuff. There's theories on why she did it. There's theories that she might have actually been bisexual and that she had all this aggression because she couldn't
be with women.
She couldn't openly, like, one, she was a sadist, right? And then also she was bisexual, so it was also sexual gratification, just like you see in serial killers, there's sexual gratification. Like, there was part of it was sexual gratification, and she preyed on females, so the kind of the conclusion is she might have been.
Is there a story that she had a love interest with a female that she couldn't be with? Was it, you know?
Well, yes. So...
this is the good stuff. I always have to make something as twisted as she is, but I want to romanticize something. The like, we can never be together because it's not accepted. Like, the tragic love story.
Well, it's not going to get romantic for you because there's theories that she was in love with her, sort of confirmed. Historians have kind of really believe that her aunt, who was labeled a witch, who was labeled a sadist. And baseline the definition of sadist is someone who takes pleasure in the pain of others. She's a confirmed, pretty much confirmed, her aunt was a pretty much confirmed bisexual and sadist, and she taught her a lot of stuff and torture too. Like, Elizabeth was groomed for violence by her husband, by her aunt, by what she saw as a kid, because her family, the Bathorys, in themselves, Game of fucking Thrones. This was a brutal fucking family, right? They were awful, but she somehow won the prize.
To keep the status quo, they fucking literally did whatever it took.
They did it, and also too, there was this idea amongst the nobles, especially the Bathorys, and it's fucked up. But they always, in their head, they always cast servants as less than human. So when you're harming, it's like, it's fucked up, but you're harming like an animal or something like that. That was what's fucked up in their head. Like it's insane. But so
Did she hook up with Auntie?
There's theories that she might have had.
What's her name? Auntie Anne.
Aunt Clara.
Oh.
There's theories
Clarice.
that she might have had. I know. She might have had a affair with her aunt named Aunt Clara. Let's do this again. Let's recap
I want to see
this.
Aunt Clara.
This is how is like let's transfer us from the 1560s when after the 1560s when she was born. I don't think I mentioned when she was born. I don't know if it matters that much. I know that's something everybody says in the onset. She was born in 1560. Who cares? But around that time, like, let's transfer around that time.
Sorry, I'm obsessed. I need to see if
Aunt Clara.
If Aunt Clara's hot.
I don't know.
I want to see if
I don't know if there's any paintings of Aunt Clara.
Where is that?
Well, she also fucks her nieces. So, I mean,
Aunt Clara's children?
No, Aunt Clara. That was her aunt. So by her having a romantic affair with Elizabeth, she was screwing out with her fucking niece.
I thought you meant like that she was hooking up with Aunt Clara's kids.
I mean, that might have happened too. God fucking.
Look at who comes up in the picture. You know that they kept the bloodline.
They kept it, and that's why all those fucked up diseases kept circulating through the empire. But yeah, anyway, so she was a torturer. She learned the best ways of torture from her aunt and her husband. Husband went away, and she started losing her shit. And she's like, "This torture."
He went to war, right?
He went to war, and she's like, "This torture is not enough." So that's when her thirst for blood carried over into murder. And so,
what do you think was going through her head? Do you think she was worried about him cheating on her and dying, never coming back? What do you?
I think she had some real mental instabilities, and she grew up in violence, and so that's all she knew. And I think this is the way that she handled her insecurities and aggression and all that stuff. I think that way she was just manic. So she started, and she kind of enlisted 4 of her servants, Elana Yo, Fisco, who was a deformed dwarf who would go around towns collecting servants, young women to go as servants. He'd collect them and he'd assist with the murder op. So she had 4 henchmen, 4 horsemen that she would have enlisted to help her out with these murders. The Elana Yo, Fisco, I forget the third, but the fourth was a lady named Anna Darvolya. Mm-hmm. And
They're Hungarian?
They're Hungarian. And the rumor is, the scuttlebutt is that she was Elizabeth's lover as well.
Ooh, how old was she?
She was around the same age. I think she was probably a little younger, but she was apparently her lover. So Elizabeth started really fucking getting in on the murder scene. She would do things like, in the wintertime, her seasonal winter thing is she would take these young servants out and pour cold water on them until they would freeze to death and melt in or freeze in with the ground and leave them there to die.
Oh my God.
You know what her summertime activity was?
Oh no. What?
She would pour honey on women, put them outside naked for them to slowly be eaten by bees. She would bite faces. This is probably where one of her tastes for blood. She would bite faces. She would bite down areas. She would put hot rods in down areas. She would do all kinds of fucked up things.
The wildest part about her story is that literally, I don't know if you want to be the one who says how she gets caught. Would you like to be the one?
You could be the, but let's hold off on that. You could totally be the one, but let's hold off on that.
It's baffling to me that it took that long for somebody.
She was active. She was married Could you imagine? And like everybody, like one of the things the historians say is that she was a good, for what it's worth. Jeez, she was a good wife. She was devoted to her husband until he died in 1604. She was a good mother, apparently.
Oh my God.
Like, you figure the kids would go running around playing and stumble into some of this shit.
Oh, 100% they would.
It's insane.
Like the dogs in the courtyard. Like, I mean.
She got to the point where she murdered so much, and she killed so much that they started digging shallower and shallower graves. They would dump them over the castle walls. They would dump them,
yeah.
I mean, she got real haphazard, like, especially, so she murdered while he was away, while her husband was away, because she just was anxious, and she's like, I can't rule this area on my own, and I'm stressed out. So she was, once he died, she really went off the fucking rails, and she started amping up her murders. So much so the fact that she started running out of servants, local servants. And kind of she branched out to the area, and she started running out of servants that were not in the area. So then she got real sloppy. She started going for the children of nobility. They would stay the night learning like what should I call it? Like manners, essentially. They would stay learning manners.
Etiquette classes.
Etiquette classes, essentially, yeah. And they wouldn't come back. And you know what happens? Like you kill off some people who don't have any means, then it's going to go unnoticed. You start killing off people with money who have the ability to follow up on stuff and search for you and really figure out what happened. It starts biting you in the ass. So that's what started happening. So someone by the name of Yorgi Thurza got wind of it and the letters and stuff like that. And the rumors were all over town. Even it got even to the point where a priest essentially wrote her a letter saying, we know what's going on. We know you're noble, which is incredibly brave of the priest. He said, we know you're noble. We know what you're doing. You got to stop this.
Yeah.
Because we have to say something. We know, like I know as a priest, my life is on the line, but you got to stop, Elizabeth. Stop murdering people.
Yeah.
So there's rumors all. So Yorgi Thurza, him and some other buddies went to the castle to investigate, and she had them over for dinner because they were noble, so they were kind of buddy. I'm sure Yogi thought Elizabeth was a friend, and they got served, and they noticed their food tasted a little weird, so they bolted out of there, and they got scared. So then that's when they kind of realized like something is weird, something's really weird. So they started exploring, and I think Yorgi is the one who stumbled into like a midway, like mid torture, mid murder. He stumbled into the scene, and that's how she was caught.
That's not what I had heard.
No, she got caught because she started. The fucked up thing is she could kill. The speculation is she killed between the conservative number is 85 people she murdered.
To 600.
The high number is 600. So let's just split in the middle. Let's say she killed like 300 fucking servants before anybody did anything, until she started killing the rich folk, and then they're like, oh no, this won't fly, Elizabeth. That's the fucked up part.
Yeah. Well, I had heard before I even go there. Let's talk about like some of the torture devices, because I think this is like kind of like crazy and wild. There are speculations that this probably isn't true, but it's a possibility that it was. I believe that she probably did, knowing what this woman was capable of doing. I think it was. So like I had heard, just imagine like a bird cage, but life size for a human to fit in it. She had it built to where there was like knives, like spikes coming out of the bottom where you would sit in the bird cage. And the rumor is she would slam the bodies inside against these knives, and then she would put her bathtub underneath so all the blood could just drip in, and she would bathe and have a blood bath, literally.
Yeah, that's the most notorious myth that's out there about that. I don't know. I know that it's so far it is
because they did have cages like that they kept.
So that
people
came
in,
from
so.
that came from someone who was, I believe someone was writing a story about it 100 years after the fact. That didn't come from any of the I believe about 300 witnesses testified against her essentially. That didn't come out in any of those stories. So whether that's true or not, I know it's well within her. With her
famous,
fucking demeanor,
yeah.
She wouldn't be shot. She'd be like, "That's too far. Thank you very much. I'm not making a bath. Thank you." She would definitely do that. I don't know if she did. I know that she probably. I mean, I'm sure she's
such a weirdo.
She definitely tasted some blood.
Everybody watching and listening right now, I'm like staring at pictures of her. I don't.
Well, apparently,
I'm looking at the evil. I want to see the evil in her eyes.
It's a painting, so it's hard to. But apparently, they were both like, she was beautiful and her husband was handsome, and they were like,
"Oh no, she didn't look that cute right there."
I don't know. That's what people say. I wasn't around at the time.
Oh no,
she might have been gorgeous for her time, and we're talking about a different time.
I mean, yeah, with all the fucking blood shit.
She had plenty of skin
Excuse
therapy.
me. So the way that I had heard that how she got caught was some nobleman like was passing through or whatever, and he around the the premise of where she lived, he smelled like there was a really bad stench, and stumbled across like some like human flesh. Like on accident. I guess it wasn't like buried, like you said. Like she started like there was just so many bodies. There's like, where do you put them at that point? And it wasn't buried properly, but it was like, and then he dug, and there was like a mountain. It was like literally like a mountain of just bodies that he had found.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he was the one that kind of like.
Well, I'm sure that people like tripped over the fucking shallow graves, and maybe that's what also tipped off the nobleman Yorgi to go deeper in and stuff like that. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that's floating out there. Who knows? I know that they stumbled into it and they kind of found one of her chambers, which had to be, oh God. I mean, I'm sure they saw a lot of fucked up shit, but that had to be real fucked up.
I can't imagine like being a parent, like, you know, you would think like, hey, I'm sending my child here or whatever, but like there should be some like a visiting, right? Like on a holiday or something where they could go see their child, and just all the excuses that she came up with why don't come on my property type of thing.
Well, I don't know if they even did. I think two factors in that. I think one, that when you were like in that time, if you were super poor, you would send your daughter off to be a servant, and you might not ever see her again in your life, whether she's happy and healthy or not. You just wouldn't ever see her again, because like how are you going to get led into a castle, and how is she going to be able to leave? She might have, some might have been able to.
I guess they leave. They leave at such a young age that I don't know. Like it just.
You're basically leaving your family
like,
behind.
I don't know. Yeah.
And then also too, she had because of the time,
better life.
Yeah, because of the time, you know, she had. She had all the excuses in the world. Oh, you know, servant, 75 died of tuberculosis. Oh, shucks. She died of this accident. Oh, shucks. Like, she could have all the excuses because life was so fragile back then, especially if you're a servant. Like, you just fucking croaked. Like, there's so many of them. The death rate, I'm sure, was intense. So she could just blame it on. And then also, too, it was something... it was a factor of, I'm sure that everybody in town's like, yeah, Elizabeth, the fucking servants disappear when she gets them. But then nobody could do anything because she is the countess of the air. She owns all the land that all those fuckers were sleeping on. And apparently I saw also it was not technically illegal to kill a servant if you're a noble person.
Oh my God.
You could just, the fact is, again, it gets the fact that she started killing off wealthy kids.
Yeah.
The servants, people were probably not thrilled with that. Like it was kind of an icky thing, but they never prosecuted her for that. They never followed up on the rumors and the innuendos and all that stuff. But once she started killing the rich folks, they came knocking on her door and they said enough is enough. So she got caught. Her 4 henchmen were all put to death in various ways. I think one of them was burned alive. There was various torture methods for their deaths, but Countess Elizabeth did not end up being executed. She's a noblewoman. What do you do with a noblewoman who's just a little too murdery?
They put her in her chamber somewhere, and they said that she died of natural causes.
They locked her in a closet.
A closet?
Essentially in a castle, pretty much. With a security guard who knows what that meant. And she lived the rest of her life. She was not allowed to, by rule, she was not allowed to have sunlight or anything like that. I don't know how strictly that was followed. But she lived there for 4 years, the 4 remaining years of her life. And apparently at the last day, she told the security guard, her last day, she told the security guard that she was cold. And he said, lie down. And she lied down and died a peaceful death. The woman who brutally tortured and murdered possibly over 600 people died a peaceful death. It's insane. And apparently I saw somewhere...
I didn't know that she had like this cushy. What I had read is that she was like, to me, the way that it was described, and this could just be me like with my imagination, they made it seem like it was like a Rapunzel tower, like where she's like by herself and like alone and nobody like.
Well, it was her and a security guard to make sure she was alone. Now, whether the security guard slept at the job and she was able to sneak away, I don't know. I don't know that.
Maybe that was her torture though, like not being able to torture. You know what I mean?
That had to eat her inside.
What? So what's the aftermath like? Where did her status go? Like from where did that money, all of all the inheritance go to her children? Did they become the nobles? Like what?
I think that the children stayed wealthy. I don't know exactly what happened to the lineage after that.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see like after that, were they just like fuck this? It's all going to the people, or did it, or like I don't know, because she's the last one standing, right? Unless her kids.
Her kid. I mean,
how old were her kids when she died?
I don't know, but I did see a documentary where like it was like the ancestor or Elizabeth Bathory's ancestor, and he was like answering questions about his theories, because I'm sure he did a 23andMe and found out he was related.
That's crazy.
Elizabeth. So he did all the research, and now he's like an expert.
God, I bet you he's a vampire now too.
No,
he'd be like, no wonder I have this intensious like feeling for blood.
But just, I mean, it's like this whole Elizabeth Bathory thing is like, and also too, as a note, I did see that, I don't know how verified this is, but she was buried, and then they went to exhume her, and her body disappeared. So I don't know. Does that make her a vampire? I don't know.
She's probably sold.
Someone probably stole the fucking body.
I mean, yeah, that's all like.
I mean, I was trying to add a little mystery, but we all know what happened. Someone fucking stole the body.
Yeah.
Dumb bitch.
What are you gonna sell that body to though? Like, what are you gonna do with that body?
Oh, you don't think some of our fellow goths would buy the skull of Elizabeth Bathory and hang it up?
That's very true.
They would.
So she could be floating around somewhere.
She could be. She could
be the skull in Disney in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Disney's a real fan.
Over the bed.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's like for Elizabeth Bathory, the craziest part is as if you gave a fucking Dahmer, or you gave Ted Bundy, or you gave John Wayne Gacy the reins. You're like, you know what? However many people you feel like killing like today, go ahead. Like, just do it till you get tuckered out. That's what she had. She had complete free reign to fucking be a serial killer it was that combination of the thirst and the lust for death and torture with the
plus
unbridled power of being a countess at that time.
Her parents that she looked up to were gone, what she said sounded
she had no
people. But on top of it, she had her aunt that was all into that shit, and then she had her husband. So it was like I'm not trying to say like this is why she is the way she is, but like that had a huge influence.
It's a factor for sure.
But I just like, for me, you have to like, there's definitely, you have to have a mental illness, because like seeing horrible things like your entire life, you still have like a conscience to know what's good and what's not good, right?
Sure, it can desensitize you. It can make you not like if you grew up with murder and torture and stuff, like it can make, if you see something happen, it can make you not have any feelings like you would if you were just just randomly living, and all of a sudden you saw this horrific thing. But it doesn't cause you to murder. Like, you have to have something in you
Right.
to perpetuate that. It has to be that combination, like, for sure. And she had that combination. She had bits of rage as a child, and she had this sadist quality, and she had this like lust for torture, and she was just fed it, and nobody fucking stopped her. Her husband taught her how to do it. Her aunt taught her how to do it.
Mhm.
Nobody fucking stopped her. And so she was left unfucking checked. I mean, I like just imagine putting Ted Bundy in the same position. He would probably do the same thing. She was, so it's just that perfect storm of being a serial killer and having it be almost lawful, having it
Mhm.
be like at your disposal.
Yeah.
Crazy. Absolutely, it's crazy. This has been a weird, heavy episode.
Yeah.
This has been
Too,
a grim one
we've
for Halloween.
we've done male serial
What is it?
killers, and now we got a good taste of some some really deep female ones that have
Yeah.
gone down in history. So this is
Yeah, I mean, these are two of the probably biggest,
very dramatic.
one of the
Very,
best. Yeah.
yeah.
It's very dramatic, and it's very interesting because it's tied with, there's so much like there's some mythology to Ed Gein, right? But there's
Yeah.
nobody's labeling him a vampire or a zombie. Like, there's so much lore around these two women. Like, there's like this whole like fucking mythology around them. Like, people seriously think that Elizabeth Bathory was a vampire. Like,
Right.
there's people out there who seriously think that she was a vampire.
Well, because and again, going back to like how they're trying to say that she's connected to Dracula and they're related. So it's like, oh well, Dracula is obviously a vampire.
Clearly, they wrote a book about it. Bram Stoker did.
So she had to have been too. It's in the
Yeah.
blood.
Well, he apparently, one of the inspirations behind Dracula was Elizabeth Bathory, along with some part of Vlad and stuff like that. He took a few different things, but Elizabeth Bathory definitely had an influence on Bram Stoker in some way. But anyways, this has been an episode of ExtraNormal Podcast. My name again is Chris. Alongside me again, Christoph. Alongside me again is Brianna. As I really land the plane really well. You could find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, all at ExtraNormal Podcast. Whatever you're going to, make sure you follow us, like, subscribe, get notifications so you know when we're going live. We pretty much record at the witching hour. So set a notice. If you go to sleep early, set an alarm to wake up just so you could hear our voices.
Wake the fuck up.
Wake up.
Put on a little makeup.
Listen to a System of Down and then listen to us. But yeah, thanks so much for listening and watching. Goodbye.